So as I was just saying to Nitherson, I got the notes you sent through.
Mm-hmm.
So they are good things to talk about. So more than happy to have a discussion about those
Mm-hmm.
things or anything else you've thought of since.
Thank you. That makes us happy as well. So I might start with the first question, if it's okay for you.
Please, yes.
You're a university-educated film expert and even directed your own feature in 1971. When did you know the producer's chair was your true calling?
Well, I was at university doing an arts law degree, and there was a very big, strong, active film society at Melbourne University. So I got to see a lot of movies, and like a lot of young people at the time, particularly, watching a lot of the movies from the Nouvelle Vague and Young German cinema and other places. I wanted Brazilians. Everybody wanted to be a director. I mean, in those days, you either wanted to be a rock star or you wanted to be a movie director. It was what you wanted to do. It was a good way to meet girls. It was a good way to generally have a good time. So I wrote and produced and directed this movie, Sympathy in Summer, which was a low budget black and white movie. And I put some of my own money into it. And unfortunately, it didn't do very well. And so I decided two things. I decided that I wanted to sort of, my next movie had to be a slightly more commercial movie than Sympathy in Summer. But I also discovered that I like to do a lot of things at once. And, when you're a director, you're really locked up for, 6 months, 9 months, and really, a very narrow and precise focus. And my personality, I sort of got to learn pretty quickly, was I like to do multiple things at the one time. So that meant that I like to do sort of production development, where I could be working on 2 or 3 projects at the one time. I also got into film distribution and started buying films. And if I'd been directing, I could never have, there wouldn't have been enough hours in the day to have done those things. So I made the decision that the next picture I would do, I would produce. And that was Phantasm, which was the sex comedy. And I filmed that just at the very end of my university studies. I connected with Richard Franklin, who was a director I knew and who I'd sort of served as a executive producer for on his first movie, the True Story of Edgar Manell, which he did. And so we sort of just had a bit of a talk about what movie would we like to do, would he like to do, and what movie that we would like to do could make money. So we decided that we would either do a bikey movie or a horror movie or a sex comedy. And what happened in Australia was that there had been a very tight censorship up until 1975, 76. And then there was a change of government and there was an R certificate for people under 18 not being allowed to go see certain sorts of movies. So as a consequence of that, there was about a year and a half where sex comedies were making a lot of money. So we decided to do that, and I got a friend of mine, Melbourne writer, to write it in a sort of a Decameron style with multiple stories. And then we had difficulty in casting it in Australia.
It's American stars in it, porn stars maybe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So what we did was Richard had gone to film school at USC and he knew quite a lot of people over in the States. So we figured, why don't we shoot the linking footage in Australia, but let's go over to LA and shoot a story a day, which is essentially what we did. And we also wanted to cast as many of the big stars of American XXX movies, because none of those films had been in Australia. So the actors were known, but that audiences had never seen any of those movies. So we figured if we put them in Phantom. So Phantom was a huge success. We spent about $50,000 making it, and it took about $700,000. So it suddenly, instead of losing money on a movie, I made quite a bit of money, because myself and 5 or 6 people were the investors in that picture. So, we did that. And then at the same time, in fact, it was so successful, we did a sequel, which we did a year later in the United States. It was a different director.
Phantasm Comes Again, yeah.
That's it. It wasn't as good as the first one. It wasn't as funny as the first one. I'm happy to say that. But it still did okay. It didn't make as much money as the first one, because by that stage, people were getting a little bit bored with the genre. But there was still opportunities. I was buying films as well for Australia, New Zealand, mainly the drive-ins and what have you. So I bought movies like, well, you mentioned The Vampire Happening. I mean, that was the Pierre Kamenecki and the girl from Elvira Madigan, and Ferdy Mayne and Freddie Francis directing. I mean, it was a wacky movie, but it was a big success for us, actually. Yeah, we bought really wacky. Yeah, we bought the Jess Franco movie Succubus and double billed Vampire Happening and Succubus across drive-ins. And for a while there was a real, opportunity for independent distribution, which I was able to be a part of. And then, having done those 2 sex movies, it was tricky trying to, get mothers to let their girls go out on dates with me. So I decided to do a family movie, which was a thing called Blue Fire Lady, a sort of a National Velvet picture about a girl and a horse and one thing and another. And that was a success too. And then I decided to get into the thriller genre, which personally I really, really like. And again, with Franklin, we made Patrick, which obviously I'm excited to know is, being re-released on HD in Germany for the first time. And Richard Franklin directed that for me as well. And Patrick was a really huge success as well. It was fascinating because we, in 4 or 5 different territories, we had 4 or 5 different versions. The American version, they revoiced the Australian actors with American actors because they couldn't understand Australian accents in those days. They did the same thing to the original Mad Max.
I just wanted to say that Mel Gibson was redubbed. I remember that.
Yeah, which was like bizarre. But and then in Italy, they took the Brian May music off the film and put Goblin music on.
That's what they like to do. Yes.
The people who bought it for Italy were connect with Salvatore Argento, who, Dario's father or cousin or whatever the hell he was. It was a huge success in Italy, and then even in Germany they cut it right down. The first German release was only about 88 minutes.